Welcome to the world's worst podcast. I still don't have a title for it. I'm going to call it the Omar Surf Clam. Really, I should probably be calling it the Omar Ass Muffin podcast because I have a very, very, very special guest. I have the one and only Jack Metrosexual, my favorite metrosexual of all time, the man himself, Mark Bell. Mark, how you doing?
Hey, it's I feel wonderful right now.
Oh, do you?
And super excited to be on WWP,
Oh, the
world's
world's
worst podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked very hard for it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna expect anything less.
Yeah, I remember, you told me to follow my dreams. You last time you were in Toronto, actually, you just said, hey, man, you know what? Get your shit together, start making moves. And so I started this podcast, and you know what? It's been downhill ever since.
How many have you done?
This is actually the third one. So I started it so I got to give a shout out to Aus, who films my videos. You met Aus. Aus has been telling me for 3 years to do a podcast. And I just kept ignoring it just because, I'm a lazy person.
Yeah.
But it's high time. I made a commitment to myself this year to follow through with a lot of different things. Like I launched kind of Gnosis, all those things. So
Hypnosis.
I'm here. Hypnosis, Genosis. Here in person with the man himself. You were actually the first podcast I ever did. I don't know if you remember how we actually met, Mark. Do you remember? Besides on Grindr, I mean, like how we met, how we met besides Grindr.
I don't know. I don't remember.
So
you came to the gym. I remember that.
No. So that was after. So true story. Evan Johnson is the guy's name, a client of mine. He actually told me I was training him. This was 2009, and he told me, "Hey man, you need to check out this documentary." And the documentary was Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Oh,
that your
hey
brother
now.
did. Yeah, Chris Bell. And so he told me you gotta check this out. He's
It's
like,
gonna get emotional.
I'm already emotional. I'm holding back tears, bro. And he told me, he's like, oh, you like that powerlifting stuff? Because I was like telling him I wanted to train for strength. He's like, I think you'd like this. So I saw you. I saw this jacked, handsome dude, Mark, lifting. Chris did the documentary. I thought it was a fantastic documentary.
Thank you.
And then when I was, trying to get stronger, looking up different things, I came across your channel. And so this would be probably then fast forward a few years. I saw some of the meets. Like I remember.
Did you have a channel at the time?
I did. I had a channel since 2009. I really started taking it seriously around 2012. And so it was around that time when I wanted to focus on strength. I joined a gym, Fortis Fitness, and the guy there, Sean Kelly, was all about strength. So I started researching things. I came across your channel. I'm like, oh, hey, now these are guys lifting insane weights. You got it. Like, Mark, you lift at a commercial gym like 350 on the squat. Everyone's like, damn.
Yeah. Right.
Anyways, I reached out to you. I sent you an email saying I wanted to film a video with you. I just reached out. Like, I think your contact info was on YouTube.
I was like, no way.
And you said no. And then I said, hey, man. Like, come on. No, and then we did a video. It was so bad, though, on my end. I don't know if you remember. You were such a sport. You don't remember any of this? It was 2014, around January. And so what ended up happening, I reached out. We did the video, and I did such a bad job recording it.
Where did we do the video?
So it was online. So we did like a Skype interview.
Oh, no, I remember that.
Oh, yeah. And I remember a wooden duck in the video and stuff. I did such a shit job recording it. We actually had to do it again.
I remember.
But what were you? You're like, this guy's so fucking unprofessional. Like, how can you do this?
That was kind of like a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was doing some stuff like that myself where I would, maybe take footage from an athlete. Konstantin Konstantinov was somebody that sent me some footage. He sent me like the raw file of him doing like a 900-pound deadlift.
Yeah.
And I would take clips like that, and then I would just either voice it over or I would talk beforehand and then show the clip. And there was a couple other things where I did like a Q&A. So I came on screen and I said, I was wondering about this question or whatever. Then I'd have a friend answer it, Matt Vincent, Jesse Burdick, stuff like that. And so to do that like that early on is kind of, it's a fucking long time ago. So
You started a lot
cool.
of different things. You've been on YouTube actually longer than myself. I guess all I want to say with that story, Mark, is I've been a stalker for quite some time. I've been watching you. Is all I wanted to say. That was the summary of the story.
Hey now.
But hey, can I get a hey now? But for you, that's what a lot of people. When you say the channel, maybe you've been podcasting for a while, doing YouTube actually longer than pretty much any other fitness YouTuber besides, Scooby, 1961. Shout out to Scooby. For you, what was like? Let's break it down because you had Put File before that. Was that the website?
Yeah.
That's like. That is, you did a lot of things early, and then your podcast, you started it. What year would it be around?
The podcast is about 4 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
and that's like pre kind of, you'd say, podcast craze, maybe.
Yeah,
So you kind of been first entrance in a lot of ways. Is that something that just kind of comes naturally? What is it?
It's just a fear of mine to fall behind. You know,
Really?
I don't want to fall behind on anything. I'm not like super competitive to where some people like they want to compete on everything.
Sure.
I'm not that guy. If I'm doing like fucking lat pull downs in the gym or something, and somebody wants to use more weight than me, then I usually let them, and I just put my weight on. I can focus in on my own goals pretty well, but when it comes to certain things, I just don't want to fall behind. I don't want to. I actually get really frustrated. Like if I see something on the internet, I see something on social media, somebody does a sponsored ad or somebody executes something really well, I'm a little like envious, I guess you'd say.
Sure.
And I'd be like,
I wish I did that first.
Shit, yeah, like, oh man, how come my team's not telling me about that, or how come I wasn't informed, or how come I didn't see it?
Who's fired?
Yeah, so I
someone's
get a
off
little
the team.
frustrated because I'm like, oh man, we have all the resources and we have everything that we need here to be on the cutting edge of everything and to try to lead rather than follow. And so, yeah, that's what I'm always trying to think. And we got a lot of cool stuff that I'm working on right now with the website.
Yeah.
Some of it's stuff that people have already been doing. It's not anything really new, but it's new to us because we have not been able to execute a website for shit for a long time. So we're working hard on that.
But I think I forget where I first heard that, and maybe you can explain this because as an entrepreneur, the line about do everything and apply not 80% of your effort, but basically just get it out so it's good enough. When you said your website, because you've taken on a lot of different endeavors, you've done a lot of different things, and you only have so much time on your hands.
Right.
Like even when it comes to, let's say, the Slingshot Empire, most people don't even know this. In your new place right here, you have a store where people could come in. It's where this mannequin is right here.
West Sacramento, California.
Represent. That you come in, buy stuff, but you have a lot of different things. You're launching new products, but you can only take so much time. And you said that whole idea about the website, or even, I think that's maybe a fear of a lot of people when they get started. Like, and that's why I brought up Put File for you. It's like, let's just get after it. A lot of people, they have that paralysis where they want to make everything perfect from the get-go. Do you have that fear, or you just think more like that idea of not falling behind pushes you forward to try new things, whereas other people might, take their time, mull it over, and maybe never honestly do it and never improve then?
Yeah, a lot of people will say, don't put the cart before the horse. I'm the exact opposite. I always put the cart before the horse because I'll fucking drag the thing myself, I don't have any problem doing the work myself and getting my hands dirty and doing some of the work. But also, too, it's important just to do. You just need to do stuff. You need to get things going. You need to get momentum. Lately, I've been trying to preach, I guess is the word. I've been trying to preach to people about these 10-minute walks. I'm trying to get people more involved in fitness, trying to get people a 10-minute walk is not exciting. It's not, it's not
It's
sexy.
not sexy.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a lot of appeal to it. Like there's really nothing great about it, but it is low-hanging fruit and it's easy. Your mom can do a 10-minute walk. My mom, who's not in great health, could do a 10-minute walk. Anybody at any age can do a 10-minute walk. And a walk can help you with your blood pressure. It can help you. It can help with you being able to increase your nutrients and being more jacked and being leaner and being healthier. And
all the things we want.
There's a lot of great things that it can do for you. Circulation, digestion, the list goes on. And so it's like just trying to get people to do stuff. And for me, because I've had a lot of love in my life, I've had a great family life. For me, doing stuff has not really been a big hurdle.
Sure.
Because I haven't had
so
to
much
worry.
Support.
Yeah.
You don't have that fear. You could jump right into it.
I didn't have to worry about other stuff. Like I think if you're single, I think if you are maybe you didn't get some of the stuff that you needed when you were a kid, I think it just makes it harder because then you're kind of searching for it and you're trying to look for it, and that consumes time.
Yeah.
So I don't have to spend time on any of that. Like I got plenty of that shit going on. I just have to make sure that I'm there for my kids and there for my wife and stuff like that. But that's all easy because I want to be there.
Is that hard for you, Mark? Just a quick question, because I actually a quick story I would say is that when I was staying at your place, has anyone stayed there since? Just answer the damn question, Mark. It's my bedroom, bro.
Yeah.
no comment.
yeah, this is
This is
wow.
awkward. I was gonna say so because I remember this. Like, are you ever? Do you have problems shutting it off, having that mindset of wanting to do more? Because I actually remember I was downstairs in the guest room. You were like upstairs,
Oh, we got in trouble.
and it was no, it was like 2 a.m. and you sent me. Oh, you mean like when we stayed up late watching Django? No, it's like you sent me a text and I was just like I was sleeping. I woke up and I saw it, and I think you said, "Hey, this would be a pretty cool video." But you sent me the text at like 3 a.m. Like
That's
we had
awesome.
gone to bed, and it's like it's in the middle of the night, and you
Yeah.
sent me a text saying, "Hey, I think this would be a pretty cool video." Like, is that hard for you to shut that off? If you know what I mean? Like always thinking about that, and you said like kind of balancing work and life, like kind
Yeah.
of all this stuff, trying to
Right.
keep growing the empire.
That's what everybody wants to do is have kind of a work-life balance. I do think that if you are really trying to build something up big, whether it's yourself, you're trying to be jacked and you're trying to look like Phil Heath, you're trying to be a really successful powerlifter, or you're trying to be a millionaire or whatever it might be, those things are going to have periods of time where you're not balanced.
Yeah.
It's just there's no other way to do it. I don't believe. Um, unless I don't I actually don't think there is a way to do it. So I think that you're going to be off balance at times, but you do have to figure out a way to to gravitate towards that a little bit. But also, the thing about balance is, people talk about being humble and stuff too.
Yeah.
And some of these words that people throw around, it's like, who really admires anybody that's humble? Who really admires somebody who's balanced? I'm not like, oh, fucking LeBron James is so cool.
Yeah.
He goes home and
You see
kisses
that
his
fire and
wife.
passion that
I
he
want to
wants.
see him
Yeah.
fucking dunk on somebody.
Yeah.
And
That's
how
what
does
he's
he,
known for. Yeah.
And how does he dunk on somebody? He dunks on somebody by practicing basketball
But
all
being
the
so
time.
obsessive about it.
Yeah, he's just fucking does it all the time, So, my dad told me something that I'll never forget. It had a huge impact on me. He basically just said, "Don't be afraid to love your work. Don't be afraid to Don't be afraid to be like pumped about the work that you're doing. Like
Yeah.
don't ever let that be anything that hinders you because you feel guilty because you're working and you could possibly be home. There's going to have to be a work-life balance that does happen, but the way that I do it is I always try to just be inclusive. My wife knows where I'm at right now. She's not like wondering or worried, like, oh shit, I wonder where he's,
That's
he's
how
with
you
it.
just send a
I wonder if
message
he's
before
with an
this, yeah.
Insta hoe, whatever,
He is. He's with me.
That's right. But there's no, there's a lot of communication that happens, and so even while we're away, we were in Bodega Bay, which is about an hour and a half from here. We go there every Thanksgiving. Been doing so for the last 10 years. And the whole family knows, like, hey, this is Black Friday. Like, there's a chance that I might have to get pulled away from hanging out with everybody for a little
Sure.
while, which fucking sucks, but it is part of it. And
It's kind of a necessary evil.
yeah, it is part of it, and it just needs to. If something's not working at home, home is the priority.
Yeah.
My house is the priority. My son, my daughter, my wife, they do come first, and so. If something has happened at school, we had an incident a while back where Jake had something happen at school. It's like, boom, I left the gym and I was, there in 8 minutes or whatever, So
That support.
yeah, anything that happens like that, things will just shift. And so I think there's a few things that people are worried about. I think when they go to start something, they're worried about how it's going to play out, and they shouldn't really worry that much about that. They should just start it.
Sure.
All great companies do that. All great people do that. Doesn't matter if it's like the Ford Motor Company or if it's Apple. Look, Apple put out that face recognition thing, and it was a piece of shit, right? So everyone does it. It's kind of part of the
Growing process of like improving and getting better.
It's just part of it, and that's kind of the main thing is just to get started, put one foot in front of the other, and just fucking keep going.
Were you about to sing me that song, bro? One foot in front of the other.
I can.
I was going to say, I want to just quickly circle back, though, because you mentioned your wife, Andy, who works with you. Andy is awesome, but I want to bring up a quick story. So a lot of people might not know this, but, when we text or whatever, I started cutting, this was about a year and a half ago, would it be, Mark? And I was just like, I was like losing weight. I had a starting point or whatever, right? We just send photos on occasion, whatever, like progress photos. So someone's getting jacked, someone's lifting weights, whatever. Like you hit a PR, I was like, hey, man, I hit whatever. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Cool, cool, cool. So I started cutting, and I sent a progress photo to you. And I said, oh, hey, Mark, whatever, like 4 weeks in. And you said, looking great or whatever, like keep it up. And then I got another message, another text like 3 hours later saying, hey man, so I showed actually my wife the photo of you, and she was just like unimpressed. And you took a photo of her reaction, of her reacting, and she just looked like so unimpressed. Can you explain that? Like, what does that mean? Am I off the team?
Yeah, I think my whole family's unimpressed by you.
Oh, no.
It's pretty bad.
No,
I know.
your daughter Quinn said one of the first things she said she wanted to rip my face off.
Yeah, and then she also told you that you're not built like she's like you're not built like my dad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like dead serious, not even trying to be funny as a kid.
I don't
That's
know.
amazing. Yeah.
I don't know what everybody has against you, but I think they just maybe don't like that you consume a lot of my time.
Yeah, I
You get a lot of my attention.
Oh, and Mark, I feel special. The I'll never be able to eat Quest bars the same. I remember.
Oh yeah, Django and Quest bars.
That was a quick aside. The first time I stayed, I overstayed at your place. I purposely got sick, and then, like a great host that you were,
That was weird. You're like, I need to go to Whole Foods and get yogurt.
you totally remember that. I'm like, Mark, I need to balance my chakras, bro. I feel miss a lot. Like I just got sick. Well, I remember that one time we were watching Django. We got some Ben and Jerry's or something, and then eating also a Quest bar late at night. And before we knew it, it was like 2:30 a.m. And you just looked, you're like, it's 2:30 a.m.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I was
Special
dying.
moment. It was a special moment.
And then we were filming videos and shit too.
No.
We were. My wife's like, "What are you guys doing?"
What the hell are you doing?
I'm like, "I don't know.
Yeah,
We're just hanging out."
Genuinely, you're one of those people that could like crack me the fuck up. Where you're telling me stories about John Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
Just so many like good stories,
Yeah.
like coaching stuff.
Telling you old wrestling stories,
yeah.
shit like that. Yeah.
And that's perfect you say that, because I think something that separates you from a lot of, first off, saying like YouTube fitness peeps, what does that even mean? You have a business, you're an entrepreneur, you also make then YouTube videos. So I think that's a little narrow description of you. But I
Right.
think what does make you different is you had, prior to putting out YouTube videos, a lot of experience essentially being on stage, being a wrestler, basically talking to people,
Yeah.
having some of that charisma. And you do have, I haven't met a lot of wrestlers, but
Right.
kind of that wrestler charisma, if you know what I mean, where you have
Right.
like, you have a personality, right?
Right.
You're a 3D character. A lot of people, when they try and talk, they're sterile. Like, if you tell a story, people will listen. And that's
Right.
why with your Powercast and all those sorts of things, you could talk for an hour and a half and people are still interested.
Right.
Can you kind of walk me through that, though, the whole wrestling process? Because maybe some people might not know this.
Yeah.
You wrestled for a while.
Yeah, wrestling was great. It was a big part of my life for a little while. I wrestled for about 5 years.
Yeah.
I got a chance to go over to Japan a couple times and wrestle. Met some fucking crazy, interesting people. Two of the best things that happened from wrestling. Number one was that I learned that I'm not other people. I just learned that it's super competitive and that there's certain things that I would never be able to do.
Yeah.
And I saw that right away because the talent pool was so crazy.
So deep, probably. So many people trying to like climb to the top, or
Yeah, and just people were they're just insanely talented. They're very gifted. They're very athletic, or they can figure out a way to get a crowd real excited, or they can figure out a way to talk really well. And you kind of just you kind of realize that you are going to have a certain set of tools to work with, and you're going to have to kind of figure out what to do with those tools.
Yeah.
But you don't have the other tools other people have, and you can kind of work towards that. But I think that is a really good lesson to know. And then obviously the other thing that came from it is just the ability to speak and the ability to. I mean, we used to do like commercials,
Yeah,
They
you
would
have to
say,
cut a promo, right?
yeah, they'd say like, I don't know, do a 30-second commercial on why this cup is so good, and then you had to get up in front of everybody, which was really hard and nerve-wracking because you're getting up in front of other wrestlers, and they're pretty much just going to shit on you every time unless you think of something really witty. Then it's hard too because it's like if you're trying to be funny every time,
And if it falls flat too, and then you probably quickly also as a wrestler like develop a reputation. Like if you fail several times in a row, and then maybe also they create personalities, do they not, in wrestling, where they kind of try and quickly see where you fit and like how
Right.
you do. So like it must be nerve-wracking because basically every time you're out there, you're being judged constantly of where you should be next.
Yeah.
Like, should you move up? Should you move down? Should you stay where you are?
right. It's difficult and it's super competitive, and you get the shit kicked out of you doing it,
Yeah.
and it hurts. Wrestling hurts. It is choreographed, but it's not necessarily fake. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you are making contact with another person. You are, suplexing and body slamming. Hey, now. Omar's getting excited
Yeah,
over here.
well, is the music getting hot in
Yeah.
here?
Woo.
I wanted to say something.
Just take off your pants. It'll cool right
My
down.
pants are already off. Actually, I still
Yeah.
got the sweater on, but it's coming off.
But yeah, it is very competitive, and you do get the shit beat out of you doing it. And so, trying to climb that ladder is very difficult. And I was in it for about 5 years, and when I started getting towards the end of my wrestling career, I was like, you know what? I promised myself when I got into this that I was going to give myself 5 years, and if
Yeah.
I'm not where I want to be, then I need to move on. And at that time, this kind of goes back to what you said originally about family, work-life
Sure.
balance, right? I'm trying to make wrestling my work. I did make some money wrestling, but all in all, I probably made just a couple $1,000s over the course of those 5 years. So definitely not a living or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I had my son around that time, and so it started to be more clear on which direction I should go. So this is another reason why people shouldn't be afraid to just get stuff going, get
Sure.
stuff. Whether it's your diet or you have an invention, you have an idea. And then also you need to recognize that that's not working anymore, just like I did with my wrestling career. And when I stopped, they were like, "Oh, we wanted to push you, we wanted to do this and that." And I was like, "Ah, you know what? That's awesome, that's really cool, but I am done. I need to move on."
That shows a lot of maturity on your part to be able to what you just said, to be able to dip basically at any point in time when you realize that something might not have a future in it, because you were still quite young when you stopped wrestling. You know?
You got to be able to audible. You got to be able to move.
Make that call.
And if I'm good at anything, I think the one thing I am good at is recognizing where I'm weak.
Sure.
And recognizing when I'm not great at something. And so I'll call people and ask them all. I've asked you hundreds of questions about YouTube. I've had you get on the phone with some of my staff and help, because nothing will ever trump experience. Experience is the key. And when I see some other people in the fitness industry, when I see them growing and I see them moving forward, most of them that can move forward and maneuver pretty well are ones that have experience under their belt.
Yeah.
Somebody like Bradley Martin. Like Bradley Martin will make a video where he's squatting with girls on the side of the bar and stuff. But what the underlying thing behind him is maybe he's not a super deep guy, or maybe he doesn't recite poetry or whatever the fuck, right? But what's the underlying thing with him is A, he's entertaining, and B, he spent his whole life working on his physique, and he looks great. So even in somebody like him, he has a lot of experience. Has a lot of experience in the gym, and he understands. You know how hard a fucking YouTube video is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there, they first see someone that is popular and they think, well, I could do that. Or maybe it's just by accident, right, that it happens. And you'll notice that a lot of people that put out content, that manage to get views, or consistently manage to do that over a period of years, it's a methodical process.
Stressful.
Yeah, they're not doing it by accident.
It's very stressful, and if you look at the retention of someone like Bradley Martin, and there's a few other guys out there executing really well also. I was looking at something that he posted the other day, and I looked at something The Rock posted, and I was like, Jesus Christ. Bradley Martin, who's got 2.5 million views, and The Rock, who's got over 95 million followers, rather.
Yeah.
They had a similar amount of
video views or something.
views and stuff, and I was like, holy shit. And The Rock, he posts a lot more, and of course he gets way more views than Bradley does, because he's the fucking Rock.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to me. I'm like, wow, there's people in this fitness space that are starting to gather that much attention, and I think it's exciting.
Yeah,
It's cool.
It's crazy to think too, because I'm sure you remember this, especially starting out on YouTube. I would say that it wasn't even viable if your sole job was to be a fitness YouTuber, like let's say you put out fitness content, to earn a living from that, like even from ad revenue, until maybe 2012, 2013. And so you started on YouTube like 2006. You probably more than anyone can understand the growth that's happening in the industry.
It's insane. And again, I don't ever want to fall behind. I saw something recently, some stuff that I saw that was coming out through Amazon, which I can tell you more about when we hop off this podcast. But
sure, like Twitch TV type of thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, a lot of stuff like that. But it's like, what if the revenue stream just completely changes? What if Amazon just totally dominates the entire internet? And what if there are no howmuchyoubench.net websites? What if there are no more Rascal Apparel? What if some of those things, maybe not your business deteriorates, but you have an opportunity to switch to a larger company? Because there's going to be other players in the game that are like Amazon.
Always.
At some point,
Yeah.
right? There's going to be bigger and stronger people coming in all the time, just like there was when there was MySpace, then there was Facebook,
People forget this.
right?
They always think whatever platform will always be there.
Amazon won't live forever.
Yeah.
Amazon won't be around for 100 years, and maybe it will exist for a long time, but somebody else will come in there and kick their ass. It's a very competitive world, and things are always changing all the time. And so what I think is going to happen, my opinion, is that there are going to be 3 or 4 major, like, quote-unquote websites, and everything will be funneled off of that. But my main point is like, what the fuck are you going to do when things change? What if YouTube just stopped paying people?
Yeah, are you going to adapt, or are you just going to do absolutely nothing?
Yeah, you're just going to shit
ready.
your pants and fall apart, you know? So you have to be ready and you have to be aware of everything that's happening.
Yeah,
That's my fear. I was like, I don't want to fucking fall behind that way.
But I think when I said there's a maturity, I remember when I stayed once again with you in Davis. We went to that Whole Foods, but we're eating at McCooney's, your spot. Why haven't they endorsed you yet, bro, is what I want to know.
Yeah, how come I don't have a scholarship?
That's some bullshit right there. Because I was going to say, we're eating there, and you pointed at a house that was across the road. And it was, I think there was a university or college there that you used to go to. You knew some friends that were staying at that house. And you said, Omar, like I kind of remembered, not that I had to get my shit together, but you're actually with your son, Jake, in a stroller. I remember.
I love that you
Bro,
remember this story. This is a great story.
I don't forget any of this stuff, Mark. I listen to the words, bro. But yeah, you're pushing the stroller. So you had your son, Jake. He's in the stroller, and a lot of your old friends are there, kind of doing their same thing. Maybe they're in their late 20s, kind of like still in a frat house, basically.
They were in a frat house, yeah.
And they're like, "Come on, man, like hang out with me." And you're like, "Man, I got a kid." Like basically, you have that maturity to know it's like I gotta move on. Like I got things to do. You have your priorities always,
right.
Like, and they're always strong. And I think that helps focus and balance your life in general.
It was great. He had a joint in one hand, and he had a beer in the other hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, man!" And he's up on a balcony.
Yeah.
And he sees me walking down the street, and he starts just yelling at me. You know, I'm like, "What the fuck's going on?"
Yeah.
And it's a guy that I worked with. I worked at a bar with him.
Yeah.
And I see him, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus, this fat fuck." He's like, "Hey, Bell." He's like, "Come on up here." He's like, "We're having a blast, man. We're having a party." And I was like, "Oh, cool. That's cool." I was like, "I'm with my son." You know, I'm trying to like,
stroller,
I'm literally pushing a stroller. You know, so I'm trying to like show him like, "Hey, I'm." Pushing my son. He's like, "Oh no, it's okay. I'll come down to you." I'm like, "No, man." I'm
trying to get out of that.
Yeah, he wasn't understanding, but it is crucial to have a fundamental base. You know, it could be anything that you're talking about, anything that you want to succeed at, anything that you want to see growth in. There has to be some form of consistency, and there has to be something that you continually go to. So for me, with my family, that is a consistent thing. If that's not good, then everything else is going to be really, really thrown off. And it can be hard. It can be hard to kind of figure out how to navigate all those things. But as I mentioned earlier, being inclusive, trying to bring everything together and making my family aware. That's part of the reason why you stayed at my house. It's like, I want people to know. I want my family to know who you are.
Sure.
So if I tell my daughter, even though she hates your guts,
Come on, Quinn.
If I tell her, "Hey, I'm going to hang out with Omar," she understands that A, it's a business opportunity. B, we're friends. And it's just important to continue to develop these relationships. And it's not like you don't have to ever wonder where I'm going because I've told you. You've seen this other person before. You know some of these people, and so a lot of these people. Some are too weird to get around my kids, but for the most part, Brian Shaw and
Sure.
Carrie Shaw and Bart and Gio and all these people, we all know each other. We know each other's spouses, and it just makes everything easier.
Now, when you talked about that, when you talked about family, and you basically hinted at, and I totally get what you mean because Mama Ass Muffin, I feel like I received too much damn love in my life where I feel it emboldens me to try the things I
love that
try.
you talk about your mom all the time, and you call her every day. You talk to her all the time.
You hung out with me. I'm super tight with my mom. Your parents, what influence, because they seem like amazing people, was that kind of what started it for you, where it kind of put that notion in your head, hey, like family's important priorities? Was that a big influence, or was that something you just kind of built on your own when it comes to you and your family and kind of how you organize your business, like your father, maybe you said, all that stuff?
No, I definitely recognized I recognized at a young age that my dad was all in, with us. There was a period of time, I think I was probably like 13 or 14, where he wasn't around a lot. He was working quite a bit.
Yeah.
But that didn't last very long. I think either him or my mom or like they kind of recognized like, hey man, you're working too much. And he was making a killing. He was making tons of money. He worked for IBM and he was doing really well. We had everything we ever needed. We had a big house, a pool. We had weights in our garage,
Yeah.
an Olympic lifting set, and like that's kind of what set a lot of this in motion. But again, I think whenever your mind has to be preoccupied with other things, and this is not an excuse to be a piece of shit or to not be mature or to not learn how to grow up, but my mind was free to do other stuff rather than like worry about food or worry about whether my dad's going to beat my mom or worry about if someone's going to be drunk or worry about, so I didn't have to worry about those things. And I try to point that out to people often because I don't want people to put me up on a pedestal. I want people to have better perspective than that. I want them to understand that we all just have different lives and different backgrounds. And so for me, I mean, I would compare it to this. When I became an adult and started getting into my 20s and stuff like that and started to kind of have my own free will and kind of recognized, hey, you know what, you can get some momentum. There are a lot of great things that you can do. Once I started to kind of recognize some of those things, I already had a lot of good momentum from all the positive things I had from being a kid and from having a great family. And so to me, I can make the comparison to being here at Super Training Gym for the last 11 years and seeing different people walk through the door. There's some people that come in with a 315-pound deadlift, and there's some people that come in with hardly any training at all with almost a 700-pound deadlift.
Right.
That's life. That's the way it is. That's the way it goes. And so for me, I already started off in a pretty good spot, and so I don't want to say everything was easy, but it wasn't that difficult. It really wasn't. I had a lot of good opportunities in front of me, and I love working. I love the people I work with. I think the hardest thing was just creating some of these things. That's what took the most amount of time. Sometimes people will say, how do you have energy to do all this? I don't even think about it because I'm super fucking fired up to come to work every day.
You're excited about it. Well, you said, what did
Very
you say?
excited.
Your father said that exact quote about don't be afraid to love your work.
Yeah, and I do. I don't even really ever view it as. I mean, I guess there's a couple things here and there, but it's rare for me to do anything that I don't like doing. Something that you mentioned. You talked about. When did you start working out?
So that'd be when I was about 18 and a half. Yeah. So like it would be like quite a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started lifting at like 18.
Yeah.
When did you everyone has like two different times they give because they'll say, I started lifting when I was 18 and I got serious about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I got serious then when I joined Fortis, like 2012. So that'd be like a couple years later. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said the same thing about your YouTube channel.
Completely. Yeah. Yeah. And I get what you're saying. Yeah. So 2009 is when I started YouTube.
So my point is that a lot of people talk about goals and they talk about if you're going to start a business, you need a business plan. You need all these things, and they make it. It causes a lot of anxiety, I think, for people.
Yeah.
People are like, fuck, a business plan? Like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I've never written one business plan. I've never read one business book.
People would also probably be surprised to know this, Mark. Do you not? You don't really use also a computer. You built basically the slingshot empire with your phone, with an iPhone.
I use my phone.
Yeah.
I've never had a mentor. I've never learned anything about business until I had one.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to learn and grow all the time. My point is dicking around and just trying to like throw shit against the wall and see what sticks is the most important thing. It trumps education. It's more important than anything. Experience is going to be the key. So how can you have experience if you're not trying? So you have to try. You have to start. You get some momentum going in the right direction, and then you'll figure everything out from there. From there, everything will start to make more sense.
You use that kind of word momentum a lot, and that I think also really relates well with training, the idea of trying to build when you're training momentum towards whatever goal you have. I want to go back then. You also mentioned the whole concept about your weaknesses and then also your strengths. You kind of knew from an early age what those were. Talk to me about your training, your early training in your parents' garage, right?
Yeah.
But also where you're able to recognize out of all the lifts what you excelled at early the most. It'd be the bench press, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Those early training days.
The best days, man.
It was awesome. It
Yeah.
really was a lot of fun. I think you've seen me speak before, and I've said this many times at seminars. May have said it at the seminar
In
I did up
Toronto.
at Fortis Fitness. Um, a lot of people they'll look at me, they'll look up to me, and they'll be excited about the things I'm doing and stuff. But I tell people all the time, I'd fucking rip off my left ear to be hanging out where you're at right now, and they kind of think, well, fuck, I don't have anything going on. But what I'm talking about is just their youth and just everything being new, the stimulus being new, training being new,
Completely.
and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
You go in, you start doing some of these things, and you're like, shit, I want my arms to be bigger. You start training your arms, and sure enough, you actually they get super sore.
You get a faster response, though. It's kind of immediate, that
and
gratification.
it feels good. It feels good right away, and you get excited about it, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm a lot fatter than I want to be, and you're able to lose some. You learn, you read about it, and you get excited about it, and you continue to make those changes, And so I've always loved that about training. I love the fact that you can manipulate it, and I learned that at a very young age because the first couple gyms I went to, they were all powerlifting based,
Right.
And there was no powerlifting gyms at the time.
Was that Mark in Poughkeepsie, New York?
Poughkeepsie, New York, Mid Hudson Bodybuilding is the
Very
name of the
cool.
gym.
Yeah, awesome. Give it the name.
I
Yeah.
think you can already picture the way that it looks, but
Grungy as hell.
grungy as hell. Smells. It was always like super humid in there.
Oh, that's the worst. So it smells and it's superhuman. That's the worst combination.
Yeah, New York is just kind of it's just kind of humid there
Yeah.
anyway. It just had these and you'd open the door and right when you open the door, all there is like a ton of steps.
Yeah.
It's like the first thing you see. It's like
That's the worst.
It couldn't be any less welcoming
Yeah,
of a
and
thing.
Any more daunting, yeah.
And it's like dark and like the stairs are gross and the stairs are insanely steep, which I never understood. I'm like, they can't be any steeper. Like,
Which is the worst for a powerlifting gym. You do a squat session, you're all banged up. You got to walk down that.
I never understood how they got all that shit in there.
Yeah. Oh.
It must have been impossible. But they had a great setup. And back then, which I'm trying to think like what the fuck year this is. This is like early 90s probably.
Okay.
Maybe even like mid 90s, early 90s. At that time when there was a good gym in the area, when there was a gym that had like a lot of free weights and stuff like that, it was all kind of one thing. There was bodybuilders and powerlifters, almost like what Michael Hearn promotes
Talks about
nowadays,
power
power building. Yeah. That wasn't like named anything, but it was just like these dudes that would come in and they would kick ass after their construction job, and they'd come in and bench and squat and deadlift. And I don't think they really. A lot of them didn't even aspire to powerlift. A lot of them didn't aspire to have a six-pack either. But a lot of them were fucking jacked.
Sure.
And a lot of them were insanely strong. I mean, I remember it was very common where I would see somebody bench 500 for a few reps, or I'd see somebody deadlift over 600 pounds or squat
That's
over 600
insane.
pounds.
Like that. How did you discover that gym in the first place? Do you just like maybe your brother or?
Yeah, I was fortunate where my two older brothers were. They loved lifting.
Yeah. That's really cool. Like to have your brother introduce you to it.
Oh, it was great. My uncle, was into like pro wrestling and stuff, and I think that at some point he was like, "Shit, man, all these guys are jacked. How do I figure this out?" And he liked the Road Warriors a lot.
Okay.
From back in the day, and so the Road Warriors, they used to do like displays of strength and stuff on TV. And my uncle used to show us all the time. And so I remember watching that as a little kid. I was probably like 8. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, what are these guys doing? They're like bench pressing or deadlifting or whatever it was. And my uncle would tell us about it. And my uncle was into football.
Right.
And my uncle, he was very athletic. He was fast and stuff like that. And he was kind of the one kind of delivering the message to us, like, you can, like, change shit through training. And I was probably 10 or 11. I'm like, what is it? Like, really? Like, you can just exercise and like then be faster. I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a superpower almost.
Yeah. I was like, how come everybody's not doing it? It doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
And so at 11 or 12, I started, throwing around some weights, and my dad recognized how into it we were, and because he was always super supportive of everything, he ended up buying us, a bunch of free weights and stuff.
Awesome.
I don't even know how he knew.
Yeah.
But he got us like all the right shit,
Really?
He got us like a squat rack and stuff, and like
That's next level, man.
yeah, it wasn't like he just bought us. Well, at one point,
Like
I think
a weeder gym center.
I think at first he did. I think when we moved houses, he bought something more sophisticated. But I think my brother Chris, he was kind of just born with like shitty knees and shitty hips and stuff. and so he had double knee surgery,
Okay.
and he went to a chiropractor, and the chiropractor, he's still around, he's still in that area. His name is Dr. Starace, and Dr. Starace was a 198-pound competitive powerlifter.
No way.
He was super fucking strong. And my brother went to him, and I went with my brother this one time. And my brother he was not doing well. He was trying to recover from he had surgery on both knees, just bow-legged. And his knees were always in a lot of pain. And the doctor said, he's like, you're going to be in pain your whole life, on and off.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Even with the surgery, he's like, you're going to be in pain. So your only option is to be strong.
Yeah.
And if you're strong,
great recommendation.
you'll feel better, and you'll be able to get around better. And he's like, we're going to have you doing squats. And he had him doing squats. He's like, oh, I'm going to show you, how you do squats. And the doctor started doing these, like, squats, and he's doing, like, these perfect squats, and he's got, like, a broomstick on his back. And I'm just kind of looking at the guy. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's I didn't notice that he was that jacked until he, like, was kind of showing us something.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, he's really jacked. And I was like, how much do you lift? And he's like, in a competition with knee wraps, I did a 700-pound squat. And I was like, oh, my God, what the hell?
The mirrors are getting hot in here.
Yeah. I got an erection right then and there. But he was the one who set us up with some of our programs in the beginning. And I still remember, like, I would write out, like, a 12-week program because at the time I just didn't have the knowledge. So I thought that every time you put a program together, as long as you went through it, you would gain that strength.
Right.
Like, that you would just retain that automatically. And I'm like, holy shit, when I go through this one, I'm going to gain like 15, 20 pounds on my squat. And then when I go through it again, I'm going to gain, I think it was even worse than that. I thought I was going to gain like 40 or 50 pounds every time I went through it. But it was just kind of a simple 5 sets of 5 type thing. I do remember.
Wait, so Mark Rippetoe did not invent 5 sets of 5?
Yeah, it's been around forever.
Yeah.
I think maybe it came from like Bill Pearl or something like that. I can't really remember, but I did 5 sets of 5, and we just did kind of progressive overload.
Yeah.
I remember you would start out with a lot of sets, and you start out with kind of modest amount of repetitions. I even recall we would do like 8 sets of 8.
Wow.
And then the next week would be like I think you would reduce the sets, and you do like 7 sets of 8.
Okay.
Then the sets and the reps would start to come down. The weights would start to go up. What was interesting though is that when you did the 8 sets of 8, it was like a flat thing. It was always the same weight. You always just used 135 pounds.
Okay.
And even as he got stronger, the doctor, he always used 135 pounds. So it's like looking back at all that stuff, I'm like, I never understood it when we were doing it. I'm like, why the fuck were we using 135 pounds? Because even at the time, it was still really light for me. And now I look back at it, it's like, fuck, that's a deload.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a deload. And he also had the maturity. That's interesting to understand that you have to, build up, then come back down, build up. Where there seems, maybe it's just on Instagram now, there's a lot of lifters just constantly pushing it, like always trying to push it towards that next PR. It seems that guy knew a lot more. Maybe
longevity is something I always look at.
Yeah,
I always look at longevity because there are a lot of people that are pushing really hard, and there are a lot of people doing a tremendous amount of sets, and there's great value to that, and you could build up a shit ton of strength, when you do 10 sets of 2, or like I've done it for years with the West Side Barbell program.
Sure.
But you do get banged up, and so somewhere between, they always say the greatest program is the one you're currently not doing, which is the fucking worst, right? But that's kind of true, because there's great benefits to some, and there's some downsides to all of them, right? And so, trying to find a happy medium between something like what Ed Cohn did and something like you're seeing a lot of lifters do today would probably be the most ideal. Because Ed Cohn he would squat once a week, he would deadlift once a week, he would bench once a week, and once a week he'd have an accessory day where he kind of cleaned up and did everything else that he needed to do that he might have missed out on, like doing calves, for example.
Right. Oh, no. You mean to tell me the greatest powerlifter of all time, Ed Cohn, trained his calves?
Oh, yes, he did.
I'm destroyed. Is that how he dealt with 901?
Yeah, I think so. But the point is that trying to find that happy medium is really difficult. Trying to find what's going to work for an individual is really difficult, and not beating yourself up with the tremendous amount of weights that we got to move around.
So two things. One, I want to know why so many powerlifters. There's some people joke the masochism, like the self harm that kind of comes with it.
Oh, yeah.
People get crazy. I want to talk about that. But can you just quickly contrast for those out there that see these powerlifting meets that are out these days that are super clean, like the USAPL, where everything's kind of orderly. You know what you're doing. Like
Right.
it's kind of a system. There's thousands upon thousands. There's more people trying powerlifting now than ever before. Can you kind of just describe maybe like your first meet or first couple meets, just the environment? Like you
Yeah.
kind of described your first gym, and you said it was like kind of dark, kind of dingy, kind of smelled, and that's powerlifting was an underground sport. So
Right.
did the competitions kind of reflect that? Like your first experiences, like where was it held? Like just give me a little rundown.
Yeah, I think some of the first ones I did, I think were in White Plains, New York. They had
Okay.
bench and deadlift nationals back in the day,
Cool.
and I was a shit squatter at the time. I did squat. My coach at the time, he was like, "You're not squatting. Like that's fucking bullshit."
Yeah.
And I hated him. I sucked at it, but anyway, I was getting better at him. But I wanted just to start, and it kind of goes back to what we said earlier about just getting things going,
Completely.
And he was like, "Hey, well, you're insanely strong in the bench, and I think you have opportunity to break some records and stuff." And so I went to a bench deadlift nationals that they had every year in White Plains, New York. And yeah, I remember going there, and I was probably 13 or 14 or something like that. And I just remember these kind of larger than life characters, dudes with these big old fucking beards and mustaches and shit. And no one gives a shit at a powerlifting meet. They just like change in front of you and stuff. And to me, it's like it's all new. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
It fucking smells like balls in here.
Smells like ass. Everyone's like changing in front of you.
Yeah, it smells like Ben Gay and chalk and
Yeah.
baby powder. That
Yeah.
baby
Oh, the
powder
ba-
smell.
You're like, why is there baby powder at first?
The combination of the baby powder and the Ben Gay is always like the weirdest smell. Like even now when I hear it, I get like a lot of anxiety
Oh,
when I think
no.
about that.
The meat, yeah.
But
Flashbacks.
I remember going to, I remember going in and going to weigh in. I think I was competing at 181. Again, I'm 13, 14 years old, so
Yeah.
I was a pretty fucking big kid. Anyway, so I go to weigh in, and I get done, and then my brother goes after me, and then he and I are talking, and I was like, man, that's kind of weird. Like, I was like, I took my clothes off, but I was like, I'm in my underwear, getting weighed on the scale, and I knew that you're supposed to take like almost everything off to get weighed in,
Yeah.
But I also knew that I didn't want to take I'm 14-year-old.
Yeah, you don't want to take your underwear off.
Yeah, and there's some old creeper,
Yeah.
on the that's weighing you in or whatever. And so I get down to, I think I was trying to weigh in on my shorts with my
Okay.
shorts on at first.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, all the way down.
What?
So
Okay.
so I'm kind of like, okay, well, I don't
You're
care.
14.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care about being in my underwear. That's not a huge deal. So I get in my underwear and I weigh myself. And he was like, no, most people go all the way. And I was like,
What?
I was like, no, I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah,
And so I just went.
You wanted to go
Yeah.
full on the nude away.
So I went with that, And I'm talking to my brother about it. I'm like, man, that was weird. I was like, fucking.
Yeah.
He told me to go all the way down,
Yeah. And you're
take
like-
take
and
all my
He's like, oh, he doesn't work there.
take take all my. I guess he wanted to take all my clothes off, And my brother's like, yeah, it was so embarrassing standing on the scale naked.
That's so
I was
weird.
like,
Yeah.
you took all your
Yeah.
shit off.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
yeah. He said all the way.
Take it. You take it. I'm gonna take off my clothes.
Yeah, I was like, nah, I didn't do that.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was exciting. It was crazy. We saw a guy named Steve Scalpy. I think that was the name. I might be getting the first name wrong, but I know his last name. I remember his last name was Scalpy. Now keep in mind this is the ADFPA.
Okay.
So I always kid around about being the realest player in the game, but I'm authentic. I've been around this shit for a long time, and I was in the ADFPA, which is now the IPF, the USAPL, right? And they did drug testing in that federation, but at the time they didn't have the money to really do like a real drug test. So all they did was like lie detector tests.
Yeah. So
And I saw this
the-
guy, Steve Scalpi, pull like 804 or something at like 181. Just veins busting out of everywhere.
Yeah. You're
And
like,
even
"Ugh."
back then, I was like, this is.
There's no way this guy's natural.
Yeah, and I didn't care. I was
Yeah,
like, fuck
yeah.
it, who cares, you know? And everything was like drug free this and drug free that. They threw the word around a lot and
Super weird. Like almost like they want to present a squeaky clean image where everyone kind of honestly damn well knows that people are using.
Oh, the guy that ran it was jacked
Jacked out of his mind.
Yeah,
The drug free, the guy that ran the drug free.
yeah, it was huge. And even when you go back and you watch Bigger, Stronger, Faster, we're having a conversation with the guy, and he's
Okay.
like, yeah, you know, you guys don't need steroids. You guys are strong as it is, you know.
You're like, sure, buddy.
Right.
It's
and
so weird, the self-deception that is in the industry, man.
Right, and steroids are a weird thing. Anybody who hasn't had the opportunity to watch Andy Gelpin, we did an interview with
Sure.
Andy Gelpin
On your channel.
on our channel, and we talked about steroids. And you know, he wasn't trying to say that steroids don't help. He was simply pointing out the fact that in terms of strength, they just don't help the exact way that people think.
Sure.
They will help you get bigger. So for you, if you took them, I gave you some Winstrol today.
Winstrol early
We'll
on,
wait
yeah.
for it to kick in. How much do you weigh?
I weigh right now about 184 pounds.
God.
Oh my god.
So almost automatically, I mean, weight gain aside, you would still gain strength regardless.
Yeah.
But the fastest way for you to gain strength right now, with or without steroids, is to gain body weight.
Right.
If you weighed 220,
Yeah.
it would be that much easier for you to squat 30 more pounds, 40 more pounds. If you just had a goal, what's your best bench, like 380, 365?
365.
So if you had a goal, you're like, I just want to fucking bench 405. If you just weighed 220 and you stayed at 220 for a little while, you would bench 405.
Sure.
Now, if you did it naturally, it might happen almost the same time frame as if you took steroids. However,
Yeah.
the biggest difference would be you've never taken them before. So if you took them, it would have a huge impact on you, and you would get those gains.
Yeah.
You'd get them really fast.
Right.
But when you're taking them and when you've been on them for a long time, they don't exponentially make a big difference in that way. They don't. It doesn't multiply upon itself, and so they can make you fucking big, and they can help you carry a lot more muscle mass in your
Some
body.
people think they're just like a cure-all, though. Like you take them and
Yeah.
boom.
And they don't really. I mean, I don't know the true science behind this. I don't want to say shit that's not correct.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they basically help your muscular system. They help you grow muscle mass. And they do help you repair. They help you recover from workouts. But I think that's blown way out of proportion. I still get tremendously fucking sore.
Yeah.
And I'm still like stiff, and I'm still getting fucked up from workouts just when I did the same way I did when I was a kid. The biggest difference is the fact that they make you bigger, but they don't really directly do much for your central nervous system, and there's nothing that does.
Yeah.
Currently, there's nothing that does other than training itself.
Now, Mark, just to circle back for those.
I
few
want you
people
to
that
get
might
on
not-
shit. Let's do it.
Just do it right now. This is the start. You just bring out a bottle of Trendstick live right now on this podcast.
We're going.
I actually said this before. I have no interest myself, but I said this. If someone could honestly, and it kind of goes back to you, if someone on YouTube would honestly document, because there are a lot of people like straight up that use and like either lie about it on the internet or just don't talk about it. You know what I mean? You were one of the first people to be open about steroid use,
Right.
And in your brother's documentary, Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and you've always held that position, which isn't an easy position because, let's be frank, when it comes to supplement companies or just brand deals in general, they want a squeaky clean image. It's kind of like when you said about that federation where they were promoting drug-free, like the guy, the president of it is clearly on, right? So it's something that is super hard to do. So that's something you've always been open about, which you definitely have my respect for. Let me ask you this. What do you make now of lifters these days, competing, maybe, kind of like, in the IPF, a lot of people are getting popped for using. What do you think about all that? Because there is a, there's an untested federation. So in strongman, what is cool, and I actually think that's super cool in strongman. It's just
No
like,
limits.
Yeah, it's untested.
They
do
don't
what you
really
wanna
have
do.
any rules.
Yeah, like what do you make of that as someone who's been in the industry, who's seen it? Like, do you just think kind of powerlifting should go all untested, or just do you think there's a way to clean it up when it comes to the IPF? Like, what's your opinion?
So a few things to think about. Again, just going back to how steroids don't help you in the way that people think they do. And again, I'm not saying that they don't help you. They do help you tremendously. And when it comes to body composition, that's probably where they help you the most. But in terms of strength, take Ray Williams, for example. Now, Ray Williams is in a drug-tested federation. He gets drug-tested often, and he squats over 1,000 pounds. He bench presses over 500 pounds, and he deadlifts over 800 pounds. He is insanely strong. I think that we can all understand that Big Ray,
Yep.
has genetics far above and beyond anything that you or I could fucking imagine, right? His genetics are insane. Genetics aside, we know that he works for it too. We know that he trains his ass off. I've seen the guy work out before. It's fucking awesome. It really is. It's a cool thing to see.
He goes all in.
He's got tons of energy on the platform too when he's competing. I have tons and tons of respect for him. But using him as the example, there's a lot of guys in the IPF, there's a lot of guys in the USAPL that are on top, that are kicking ass, that are breaking records.
Yeah.
They're breaking records that have been previously held by people that by untested athletes, right? Yeah. Again, so my point is bringing it back to that situation where it is possible for a drug-free athlete to be stronger than somebody that takes stuff. So if the people that are on the fence, people that are thinking about should I not, I think people would be shocked at the number of people. I've actually, now I think about it, in all the people I've ever talked to about taking steroids, there's only been a really, really minor amount of people. And the only reason why I told them they should make the leap is because they pretty much already made up their mind.
Right. They're completely convinced beforehand.
And what I wanted to convey to them, and the reason why I was like, yeah, you should probably, the reason why I did that was because I wanted to be able to help them. I wanted to be able to say, hey, look, man, I've done it wrong. I've done it right. I've done it this way. I've done it that way. I don't want you to get fucking hurt. I want you to get sick. And there's a lot of side things that come along with it. But there are a lot of these lifters that are breaking records that are from guys that haven't been tested.
Yeah.
When you start to think about that scenario, and now obviously Ray could be, getting past the drug test somehow, right?
Sure.
But not everyone's getting past a drug test. I think that's what everyone's thinking, because there are more and more guys getting popped. But not every person that's strong is guilty of using steroids.
Completely. Yeah.
There's a lot of really strong.
Oh, this guy's stronger than me. He has to be on.
Yeah, I think that's the perception. I remember having a conversation with Silent Mike one time. We were talking about, he was talking about trying to keep up with some of the lifters in the gym, and I was like, hey man, it just, you made a choice. You made a choice to not use, and it might just take you a little bit longer. And then we got into kind of a discussion about it a little bit more, and I was like, Mike, where do you think your genetics lie? You know what I mean? Are your genetics anywhere near? And I rattled off a couple other people, and he was like, I never really thought about it that way. So your genetics are your genetics, and you can make a lot of changes. You can make yourself lean, you can make yourself strong, but there's still like a little.
People hate hearing that,
I know.
Yeah, it's such a bummer. Where people, the number one determining factor.
But I'm not gonna be able to play a piano at a really high level, right? Like I don't know anything about it, and even if you taught me, I can go to the best teacher in the world. It's just not my thing.
Yeah,
right.
But it's crazy because some people. And I think what it is, a lot has to do with ego, and that's maybe I want to dive into the whole masochism thing, and then I want to talk about your lifting and slingshot. I think in lifting in general, because our egos get in the way, people don't want to be told no,
Yeah.
And they take that as a no when you say something along the lines like, genetics are a big factor. It's like, well, we don't know that. You don't know your limit. It's like, basically, maybe I might be the next Ray Williams. And I'm like, that's like, you don't know until you start lifting, but you got a pretty good indication after a few years, like if you're not squatting. Like I remember Jeremy Hamilton, couch that goes to my gym, he said the first time he ever picked up a barbell, he deadlifted 405. Like the first time I ever picked up a barbell to deadlift, I did like 135, you know? Like there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, that's
right?
That is a big difference.
Yeah. So just for people to consider, let me ask you this, Mark, just getting kind of into the mindset of maybe a lot of lifters. You've seen so many people either through being a guest at Super Training, people you train with, the best of the best, and also just interacting with a lot of people. there is kind of a mindset I find with some lifters. We talked about that pushing themselves a lot, going after a goal, where it's almost like a self-harm where they put on blinders and they're willing to do it at their own expense. Like we
Yeah.
see a lot of lifters, you talked about longevity, getting injured so often, and kind of not to call it stupid what they're doing because everyone has a goal, and I completely understand that. But what do you think it is about lifting or guys or just whatever where there's so many people willing basically to willing to lose it all in order to try and get stronger? Like just obsession? Like what is it?
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. You get lost in anything that you're trying to do. You take it too far,
Yeah.
and the only way to learn it is to go through it. The only way to learn it is to have experience. The only way to learn sometimes is to get injured, is to get hurt. And yeah, there's people going fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people lifting some insane weights, and that is something that I try to look at. I mean, you can't be a pussy,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, you do have to be able to survive. You do have to be able to lift. And I think there's a couple things going on. I think that people do take pride in being like a masochist and saying like, "Oh, this is hardcore." This is,
Yeah. They want to be hardcore.
But I think there's also a lack of communication with their coaches.
Okay.
I think that sometimes I remember when Mike still coaches a lot of people here at Super Training, but I remember when he was coaching some of our guys.
Yeah.
And some of the guys would be like, "Man, my back's hurt. This is tight." And this is. I was like, "Well, you're doing a lot of work, but don't tell me. You should communicate that with Mike."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people are kind of scared to go to their coach and say,
Open
"Hey,
up.
you know what? Like when I played football, your coach would say, 'Hey, man, if the other guy on the other side of the line is too much for you to handle, come tell us, and
Yeah.
we'll switch you out with somebody else.'" And that's the last thing that you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever tell a coach like, "Hey, man, I don't think I can handle it."
Yeah. I can't hack a coach.
But that is what people need to do. People do need to say, "Hey, you know what? Like, can we slow this train down a little bit?" Or even if you just have a little chunk of knowledge that may help your coach assist you to lift more weight, then you need to fucking tell him. You can't just be a hard ass. Maybe you have a pain in your right knee every time you do a sumo deadlift, and then you never tell your coach.
It just gets worse and worse and worse. And before you know it, you're banged up.
Yeah, and it's like, how is the guy supposed to be able to coach you if you're not communicating with him? And I think there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm on board. I'm fucking doing everything you ask." I do think that we should just knock the weight down a little bit because I'm not moving it very fast. It doesn't feel very clean. My form is shit. Like, I
Keep
think
that
my
ego
form
in
should
check.
be better. But even if you send a video, the video's not going to show you all the nuances of how hard the lift is. A lot of times you look at the video like, "Oh, it's cake."
Yeah, it moves fast, but your body, you felt that. It's like, oh, my hip was hurting when I did that, my shoulder.
Yeah.
That's something, though, Mark, for you that you exhibited when it comes to your lifting in general, where kind of you talk about that dip or knowing when to quit or move on is perhaps a better way of saying it. You took a fall when you're doing geared lifting. The squat,
Right.
what was it? Was it 1080? How much was it?
It was 1,085.
1,085. Yeah, and then you made the choice. Like, talk me through that choice to move on from gear lifting, and then also raw lifting. You did that for a while, and like people, a lot of maybe younger lifters, if they're listening to this, they think like, "I'm never gonna get injured." But like, you
Right.
know, from years and years, what is it? It's like almost 30 years of lifting now. You got like
Right.
your elbows messed up, like just everything from lifting, and so you made those choices, and I think they're all the right choices. What was going on in your mind in both of those? So for geared lifting, like when you said, you know what, time to move on, and then for you when it came to raw lifting.
Yeah, I just think about, as I said early in the podcast, just step by step. And when I'm pushing, we have a sled outside that's called the tank.
Yeah.
And the tank has these two handles on it, and when you push it and you have it on its highest level, you have no choice but to have your head down.
Yeah.
And so your head's down and you're just pushing forward. And if you look up in the beginning, you're like, "Oh my God, like fucking long way to go." And so after a while, you learn to raise your head up and look where the finish line is much later. Sometimes to the point where you're like, "You know what? I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm going to keep fucking working, and I'll just kind of recognize when I get to the finish line because I'll have pushed for so long and I've exerted so much energy." And with myself, I try to just view life that way. I try to just view everything that way, that you're kind of putting your head down, your blinders are on, you're not paying attention to anything that's going on around you. If you watch a horse race, the horses, they have blinders on. If a horse doesn't have blinders on, they fucking fall.
Yeah, they need that direction.
Yeah, they fall and they wipe out the whole rest of the field. So
Yeah.
like a catastrophic thing happens because they're concentrated on somebody else, or they're concentrating on what other people are doing. So for me, it's always kind of that head down mentality. It's always kind of one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and so you made those choices to kind of move on, and you knew what you wanted, and now you have perhaps a more mature or more holistic goal where you talk about that 10-minute walk, improving your health, kind of longevity.
Let me
is a
just
big
back
thing.
up just a tiny
Yeah,
bit,
go
because the one foot in front of the other thing, it leads me to this next thing, which is, yes, you are trying to plow forward.
Yeah.
And yes, you are pushing with everything you have. Now, at the same time, know when to fucking pack it in, man.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
huge though. You've done, like you said, wrestling, lifting. Yeah, go on.
yeah, no one, like, am I gonna put my whole people don't fucking care how much I squat.
Yeah,
They don't care how much I bench or deadlift. Sure, they're inspired by it here and there, but people are inspired by the whole journey.
yeah,
They're inspired by the whole process. They're inspired by the longevity. They're inspired by some of the words I say. If I had a lineup of 400 people, waiting to get an autograph or something, and you said, "Hey, what's Mark's best
lift, like
best
that squat.
bench or
Yeah.
whatever?" Some of them would know, because some of them were real diehard fans. A lot of them wouldn't know. Or if you just simply asked them, "Hey, what are you in line for?" They're like, "I want to fucking shake hands with Mark Bell. I want to tell him how much I appreciate the content that he puts out. He's helped change my life because he's delivered these different messages." And so for me, yes, it is important to continue to strive forward and always try to keep pushing. But when there's a fucking wall and you keep moving your legs and shit ain't moving anymore,
Move on, man.
You're not making any progress,
Yeah.
and you're wasting your time. And so I don't think people understand, when I fell with that 1,085, that was fucking devastating.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it demolished me in so many different ways, physically, mentally. But I had a lot of time to just kind of sit and reflect, too, because I was off my feet for probably about 2 months or so.
That's insane.
It was pretty bad. But I mean, I recall going from my recliner that I love to sit in and watch TV to a pull-out couch pull-out bed that was downstairs in our old house. In our old house, we had my wife and I, our bedroom was upstairs, and there was just no way I was going to be able to get up those stairs. But from the recliner to the pull-out bed,
Yeah.
it took me 45 minutes
That's insane.
to walk across the fucking, and my wife wanted to help me and stuff, and I was like, no, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do it on my own, and to get up to use the bathroom and to do any of that stuff. It was really brutal, and so I had to reevaluate. I had to sit there and kind of like,
Life goals, like what you
yeah, but it also wasn't like it wasn't like I wrote out a plan either. I'm not that kind of person. I was just like, you know what? Okay, so number one is I'm really fucking big.
Yeah.
This is not healthy.
Yeah, you were 330 around at the time?
Probably at the time, I was probably at the time, actually, I remember I was around 300, 305, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, wasn't my all-time fattest. But I was just sitting there, and I was like, you know what? Main thing is I can't exhibit my strength. I wouldn't even be able to do a bench. My body is pretty mangled. My ankle was fucked up. My hip was fucked up. My knee was fucked up. And I just had to switch gears. And so I was like, okay, first thing is let's drop some weight.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, I'm going to lose 80 pounds. The first thing was I was like, after powerlifting meet, and for those of you that are on stuff and those of you that know that process, when you come off stuff, it's like, letting air out of a balloon. You can deflate yourself quite a bit. And then also you have a ton of water retention. Even you regular powerlifters out there that aren't utilizing any performance-enhancing drugs, you can lose a lot of water weight after powerlifting meet, because a lot of times you're stuffing down donuts and potato chips and shit like that, and you're trying to get that bulk going.
Get that bloat.
Yeah, and so the first thing for me was like, I'm going to knock off 15 pounds. And at the time, I was not in a good frame of mind to really dive into like a real diet.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to check out Rob Wolf's Paleo Solution.
Okay.
So Paleo Solution is basically just, eat natural foods. Eat steak and chicken and
Fruit,
eggs,
vegetables.
fruit, vegetables, and yeah, there's like some limitations because you're trying to avoid gluten and these different things. And I know people get all fucking crazy about these diets, but you got to understand Rob Wolf was very, very ill. He was very, very sick. And Rob Wolf, by the way, is a badass. He's a fucking powerlifter, and he's super fucking strong.
Yeah.
He could squat 315 with his ass to the floor for sets of 10, and he's like, I don't know, 170 pounds, 180 pounds. I mean, this guy's a fucking beast.
Yeah.
This guy's a savage. I really admire him a lot. Um, but he was very sick, and so he had to have these really strict guidelines with his food. But anyway, my point is that I knew wasn't going to like follow some fucking crazy bodybuilding diet. I knew that I was not in the frame of mind. Remember earlier I talked about dicking around.
Yeah.
Right? You just have to kind of
yeah.
you just have to kind of try some stuff and mess around with some things. So I was like, this is kind of the perfect diet for me. I'm just going to basically eat meat, potatoes, rice. I'm just going to clean up what I eat. I'm not going to be on a quote-unquote diet because every motherfucker is walking around in a calorie deficit, which is a huge fucking mistake. And so I just wanted to alter what I was eating. So I did that, lost 15 pounds, and then started to set up some goals. Once you get that momentum, that's when you can start to think about goals. But before you have that momentum, it doesn't really make any sense. I've had people the people that set goals before they have any momentum, I got a word for them. I call them losers.
Right.
Because they'll be like, dude, I just want to deadlift 800 pounds so bad, and you're like,
that means nothing.
Dude, you fucking barely pulled 550 and your form is shit.
Yeah, you're going from A to Z without thinking of your next step.
You stay up late. You fucking get drunk every week. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You want to deadlift 800 pounds? So
that's not a goal. That's like a dream.
It's kind of a different thing, right? And so understand when it's time. Understand when it's time to shift gears. Understand when it's time to pivot. And luckily for me, that pivot was, I'm just going to kind of see where it takes me. And I'm going to keep losing weight, keep getting in better shape. And if I can remember the timeline correctly, I lost a bunch of weight, got in the best shape of my life, did a photo shoot with BSN. My most proud lift is a 500-pound, 505 bench for 3 reps when I weighed 245.
Right.
So it's a double body weight bench for a triple. And I was fucking shredded. And the
is
next,
that the one where you have that like kind of photo where you're
in front of the weights and
yep.
everything? Yeah.
So right then. Okay.
Right. So the next day, after I benched that 500 for 3, I did that photo shoot, and I think maybe even the week after, or maybe it was the week after, I ended up competing, and I benched 551 at 242. And so that was a really cool time. But even during that time, I was like, you know what? Raw powerlifting is a new thing. I need to figure some of this out because if I'm going to be the people's coach and I'm going to try to lead people, I need to have a better understanding of this. And to be honest, 100% honest, I knew nothing about raw lifting because I never did it before.
Yeah. I
was very strong when it came to a bench press, but deadlift and squat was not very good. I had to rebuild everything.
You got to check, and it seems like a lot of like geared lifters, people that used equipment, weren't willing, potentially, maybe, I don't know if it's like checking the ego at the door, or maybe you go from squatting like 1,000 pounds to back down to 600 pounds or something, but it shows maturity on your end to be able to say, okay, like raw powerlifting, I'm kind of done with gear lifting, let me go over this whole process. Like it's almost like starting over, which no one, like, let's be frank, like starting over, if you're at 100 and you got to start at 0 again, it's kind of rough.
I'm never going to be embarrassed about my own results.
Yeah,
I try hard. I try really hard. I mean, I can't be anything that I'm not. I can't. When you walk through the door, I can't be squatting 7 plates for 10 reps. Like that's not how strong I am.
Yeah.
I even through all the years of training, I've never been as strong as someone like Jesse Norris. I've never possessed the strength of an Ed Cohn.
Sure.
I just did the best that I could, and I don't have an ego in that way. Luckily for me, I think it goes back to having great parents.
Yeah.
I think that really helped me a lot to the point where I'm not hot-headed. I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty calm. Even with our business, we had the Black Friday sales were fucking...
We're nuts. Yeah, you walked me through kind of the warehouse. Yeah.
It's really unbelievable. And my mother-in-law, she was like, you ever get like kind of like overwhelmed with what's going on? And I was like, you know what? I don't really look at any of the numbers. I'm a power lifter.
Yeah.
I'm a power lifter and an inventor and a dad, and like all this other stuff that's happened has happened because I work really hard. So it's not none of it's a surprise to
Yeah.
me.
None of it's an accident
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
And
it's
that's
all
a
intentional. Yeah,
Mark, I want to maybe shift to the last topic of conversation. You starting your business because you've been something, and it was kind of maybe an old catchphrase that people would say. There's no money in powerlifting, right? There's no money in lifting, and you see that like even maybe back in the '90s when you lifted at that gym,
right.
a powerlifting gym. It's not this glamorous thing that you go to. It's dungy. It stinks. Like no one's making money off of it.
It makes sense. It was hard to figure out how to make money off of people that were exercising. Period.
Yeah.
Until the supplement industry kind of came along.
Yeah, and so for you, what was the first step? Was it you dealing with some injuries, you being banged up that made you form the slingshot? Like, what was that process for you?
Yeah, I don't remember. Again, timeline-wise, I'm not great, so I don't know all the details. But the slingshot started in 2010.
Okay.
My fall happened after that, I believe. I
Okay.
believe it happened like 2012.
Okay.
And that time period allowed me to, I guess, refocus my energy.
Yeah.
My energy was I was obsessed with trying to be the strongest person I could possibly be. And I squatted 1,080. I benched 854, and I deadlifted 766. And that was my limit. I could not go any further. When I did the 854, it was fucking hard. When I squatted, the 1,080 squat was actually pretty solid, but it was still hard. And when I did the 766 deadlift, I couldn't have done 767. You know, it was literally everything I had. My best total was up over 2,600 pounds. That was everything that I had, and I recognized that, and I wanted to move on. I wanted to shift gears and put my energy into something different, and that something different was my business, which I already had going. The slingshot was invented. I've told you the story several times. The slingshot was invented off of me tearing my pec several times in the gym. I came up with a bunch of shitty ideas at first, and was trying anything and everything to basically replicate something like a bench shirt, but something that was less expensive, easier to utilize. I wanted something you could pop on and off in 10 seconds, and it would help you with pain, help you with your form, and eliminate some injuries that you might get, and also help you to lift more weight. And so that's what ended up happening. But having a product, I guess people don't really understand. I mentioned it. I just said I'm a power lifter. I'm an inventor. I'm a dad.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with owning a business? What does that have to do with like marketing a product? It has nothing to do with it. They're separate things. And for me, it was like, okay, now you have to figure out how to learn. Like, I made a cool product.
Yeah.
I showed it to a bunch of powerlifters. Powerlifters got excited about it. They understand it, but nobody else gets it.
Yeah.
Fuck, man, I got a lot of work. How do I figure this out?
It's a whole new product. Like, no one thought about it before. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Like,
right.
Why? And also build maybe that need of why would someone need it then? Like, so someone thinks, hey, I need this.
If you shot a video right now and you did 100 push-ups in a slingshot, most of the comments would be, oh, my God, I didn't know it could be used for push-ups.
Yeah.
And I've been promoting that since we started in 2010, that it could be used for push-ups, bench press, and dips, stuff like that. And so trying to figure out how to, I guess, funnel my energy into the business and into being creative and into that's the hardest part. The hardest part of this business is you've heard Eminem make the statement before that he'll never have another song that will match his first one. He'll never have an album like that again.
Yeah, and that's a true statement, though.
It is true. Yeah. It is 100% true, and he's had many successes after. Of course, but I feel the same way. The slingshot is going to be. It may not be my greatest contribution because there's still a lot more to come, and there's a lot more things that I have to share with a shitload more people. You know, it will reach more people. But the slingshot's going to be the best thing that I ever made.
Because also maybe that newness of it. It was your baby, the first real thing that you thought of, that you made, and
plus I had nothing else going on.
Yeah,
I had nothing else going on like for myself or.
Sometimes that's a good thing though, where you're kind of backed up into a corner. You're like, okay, what am I going to do?
No, that was the key.
Yeah,
that was literally the key factor there, and then it's a matter of like you just take the slingshot and you're like, okay, we'll make different colors.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make them different. We'll make a double ply one.
Yeah.
We'll
Different
make
intensities.
different intensities. Okay, we right away when we launched the slingshot, we launched it with wrist wraps because we were like, well, if people are going to be benching heavier, their wrists are going to get killed, and so I thought it was important for them to wrap their wrist. And now we just all the products that we make are I call it performance enhancing sports gear
Yeah.
because it's all stuff that helps you lift more weight, or it's all stuff that helps you
Lifting more safely,
yeah.
longevity, getting back to it.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy how ubiquitous some of the products have become. Some people might be like, oh, like a slingshot, like, why would I need that, blah, blah, blah.
It's an elastic band.
Yeah, like, come on, like, you could, like, it's useless, bro, this and that. Literally, Boris Shako, like, the greatest, arguably, powerlifting coach of all time. And so he's collabing with us for a program. He mentioned for the bench press as one of the accessories is the slingshot bench.
Right.
It's like the greatest coach of all time. It's like, yeah, like he's like the slingshot bench is one of the accessories that's going to be in the program. Like he chose.
Yeah, he also recommends like bands and chains, and it's great to see somebody like that who's taken on some of these other concepts. I went to a seminar of his, and he's up there talking, and I ended up showing up a little bit later than I wanted to. He's in the middle and he's talking and he's like da 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 da, and he's because he has an interpreter there.
Yeah, Dimitri was it? That guy?
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dimitri didn't say anything yet, so he Boris was just talking, and Boris was going on, and he was like slingshot, Mark Bell, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this guy
I'm
reached
like,
all the way in
me?
Russia. Yeah,
like I was coming there and I was super excited to meet him, and the only thing I want to do is shake his hand and just say, hey, man, your contribution has been great. I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for helping so many people get stronger and understand lifting better. And I didn't think he would even know who I was.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
But it shows just kind of the impact, though. I thought it was really cool because when we were coming up with the program, we went over like squats when we filmed the video, squat accessories, deadlift, and then we went on.
He's
the bench.
awesome.
And he's just like, oh, he's the real deal. He's so funny. He's like the grandfather I never had. Like he comes in a matching, not Adidas tracksuit, but like a knockoff, like a Russian knockoff. It's great. Like just, and he comes alive when he's in the gym. Like he's normal. He's very kind of formal. Presents himself very well. He has class about him, and then he's in the gym and he's kind of like a kid when he's like in the place that he wants. Like maybe back to that concept of loving what you do.
Another thing that he did at that seminar was shit, what's the guy's name? I'm losing his name.
Klokhaev?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was lifting, right? And he was doing some demonstrations. He started doing some cleans. He started doing some. This guy, I mean,
he's a beast.
Jesus Christ,
yeah, he's just like so strong.
Yeah, they nickname him Misha, right? That's what they call him. And he has done all kinds of crazy stuff, but he has that Olympic lifting background. He's a strongman background
and
powerlifting background. I mean, he's
a hot guy, babe, bro.
He's basically like one of the most talented lifters to ever walk the face of the earth. He's unbelievable. But he's up there and he's lifting and he's showing us the box deadlift and he's showing us some different movements. And he's trying to get the weights on there, and no one else is really helping him or whatever. So I start helping him load plates and unload plates. And Boris Shako comes back into the picture and he gets in front of everybody and he stops the seminar. And he says, this man, he obviously speaking in Russian, right?
Yep.
Then the translation is, this man is Mark Bell. This is why he is great. You see, he comes up and he helps him. He doesn't even think about it. He just helps right away. And then he's like telling everybody like about the slingshot and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm in total shock. So that was one of my cooler experiences I've ever had in powerlifting. It was awesome.
And that's something that's so cool is reaching this point with you. You basically going back to that concept where you have so much support. You get to do what you want to do. Like you reach it also the point with your business, with the Slingshot Empire. Maybe I guess the final question for you then, you said you got some exciting things on the way. I know you're working with your brother Chris Bell on some projects. Mm-hmm. And you also talked about that concept, Mark, kind of like your first love or your first passion, your first like maybe your meet or the first product you invent where there's that freshness. What excites you now? Like what do you look forward to in the future? You got some things on the way. What's going on with you?
As always, we have new products coming.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm most excited about from a business standpoint is just optimizing, just making everything more optimal. We have stuff that just doesn't work very well. We have a
Yeah.
lot of fuck ups with our website. We need to continue to work better with communicating with our employees. We have awesome employees here. Everybody's working really hard. But I myself, as a CEO, as an owner, I have to do a better job of communicating with people and making sure they just understand what I'm looking for. I need to get a better understanding of what they can do and what they can't do, where they're really good and where they kind of suck or whatever. And so figuring some of those things out, all that's still kind of new to me. You don't just, I don't have like a fucking instruction book,
Right.
I'm just kind of like learning as I go. And so I'm excited to get everything to a point where it's just more efficient. Efficiency is what I'm after, and I'll probably always be in search of that because that's just the way it goes. Um, Coming up, I'm going to the Onnit Academy. I've been down there before. It's
Right.
in Austin, Texas. I'm also visiting my buddy Todd Abrams, who's the owner of Icon Meals. So a lot of that kind of stuff that I do is just to rub elbows,
Yep.
rub elbows with people that are smarter than me, rub elbows with people that are more successful than I am. While I'm at the Onnit Academy, I'm going on Aubrey Marcus's podcast. He's a very successful podcast, and he's the
Oh,
owner.
I get it, Mark. I
He's
get
the
what you're saying,
owner
bro.
of not this
Re-
bullshit.
Yeah, really excited about that podcast. Cool, bro. Cool,
He's
cool, 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 cool.
the owner of Onnit, and he built something that actually I kind of think that it might be the only thing that's remotely similar to super training.
Really?
And Slingshot, the Onnit Academy. Yeah,
Really?
because it is everything kind of under one roof. They don't have their like manufacturing there or whatever, but
It's cool. Now, super training, you have the whole gym, and then
Yeah.
you also have all your gear here.
right.
Yeah, because I remember you gave me a tour a few years ago of the old facility where you stored all your stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, we're making big moves here, and just really fired up about everything. The movie that I'm working on with my brother.
Yeah.
We have a lot of ways to go.
He makes awesome documentaries, so I have no doubt like this next one.
This one's all nutrition based.
Okay.
We're still tossing around the idea of what to name it. The War on Carbs was something we were thinking about calling it, but we don't want to turn people off and have them think it's like an all keto movie.
Yeah.
Which it's not. We're just trying to. There's so many questions, man. There's so many questions that aren't answered, and the truth really is that what we're learning, A, the answer always lies in the middle,
Sure.
and B, people don't really know.
Yeah.
They really don't know. The calories in, calories out thing is like it's like a guess,
Yeah.
And some people will say, no, it's not a guess. They'll give you scientific research that shows you why calories in, calories out is effective. Then you'll have somebody else who give you really outstanding information as well. That it's a myth.
Right.
That doesn't have as much merit as you thought. And so, in this process, my goal for myself is. I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to all the different things that there are to know about nutrition. And I think that more people need to embrace that fact. Where does nutrition start? Where does digestion start? We don't really truly know. You think
It's not just
you're like,
macros, like calories.
you're like, oh, digestion probably starts with like chewing the food, you
Yeah.
know? But no, it starts way earlier than that. Where did your fucking food come from?
Yeah.
Is a huge factor. How was the cow treated? Is it grass fed? Is it this? Is it that? The preparation of the food, how it's cooked, where it's stored, how long it was it's just
All
like
those things before it enters your mouth.
it blows your mind, right? And so what I want to try to do with this film is I would like to prove myself wrong. Some of the ideas that I have in my own head,
Sure.
and some of the ideas that I have just accepted as like, this is good and this is bad. Well, maybe nothing's bad. Maybe everything's bad.
That
Like,
inquisitive mindset is really cool, though.
Yeah, I want to try to really find answers, and what I ultimately want to do, though, more importantly, is to be able to supply people with something that will allow them to effectively be healthier. Something that's why I'm promoting the 10-minute walks. It's like I don't have to talk to you about diet stuff because that's a whole other thing, and it's not easy to get you to do.
Yeah.
But if I can just get you to fucking put one foot
Make
in front
the
of the
first
other.
step.
I
When you
can
talk
just-
about momentum.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
can get you just to do that. I'm working with a family friend. He ended up having a really horrific injury. He went to go get a glass of water in the middle of the night and went to go down his stairs, and he took some sort of weird, crazy tumble.
Yeah.
He severed his Achilles tendon on one side. He fucking spiral fractured his shin on the other side. Insanity, right?
Yeah.
This guy used to play football. He used to be super active. He gained a lot of weight. And I talked to him over Thanksgiving, and I said, dude, like, I'm fucking family. Like, I'm right by your side the whole way. We'll text. I'll knock 50 pounds off you. I just knocked 50 pounds off Andy Frisella. He's the owner of First Form Nutrition. And I've been helping thousands of people lose weight. And it's not hard, but it can be difficult to just get going. But when you start, the main thing is just to start and have something that you can have some consistency with.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, you don't need to dive into some crazy diet. You just need to dive into the fact that you just take a deep breath and go, okay, this is going to, you're like, it's December.
It's going to suck a bit.
You know, by July, maybe I'll have knocked off 20 or 30, depending on, how you respond. By that time, hopefully I've knocked off some weight. You just have to understand it's going to take you some time. And it could even take, this is something else I share with people all the time, and it fucking sucks. But it can take you 6 or 8 weeks just to even get on a diet.
Yeah. Yeah, to be consistent with that. It's funny that you mentioned that, though, because actually someone that goes to the gym, I think you met at the seminar, I think Jason Cosentini, who goes to the gym, is someone, you talk about different impact, like maybe lifting or like being inspired by other people. He followed your diet advice, and he lost like 30 pounds
awesome.
a few years ago, just getting people moving. I guess, Mark, my final question for you, because you've touched on so many different things. I hope this is a pretty good representation to people out there of who you are, like kind of your mindset, where you're going, what excites you.
I think it's been awful.
Well, that's was going to be the question. You've been on many podcasts. You've hosted a lot of podcasts. Is this the worst podcast or the second worst?
Without question, this is the worst podcast I've ever heard of.
Well, I just want to say in closing then, thank you so much to the Jack Metrosexual.
I think it's awesome that you started a podcast. You already have an interview presence about you that follows the protocol pretty well as is. So I think you're going to do awesome with it.
Oh, Mark, thank you. I am proud to call you a friend. For those that don't know, you can check him out on YouTube first, so Super Training. You can also check out his Instagram, where he posts a lot of – I mean, honestly, I'm going to be perfectly frank. I think you should post more shirtless photos, but that's just me. That's just a friend calling an ace an ace.
That was weird. I have a shirtless photo from today.
Oh, that you posted
No, you and I took.
Yes. Well, under my request, I said, Mark, I didn't even say it's going to get a little. Here, this is what I love.
You did that when I came to Canada too. You're like, I have a shirt off. I'm like,
no,
what?
It's not even a joke.
You gave me an outfit too. You're like, oh, you're gonna be wearing this. And it was like 1 in the morning.
Yeah, it was 2 a.m., bro. What was so amazing? Just to wrap up, I would say about that story. I like that we can do this. Like I'm here to get a little treatment, just here in Sacramento for my back. The man Jordan Shallow. I messaged Mark. Is that cool? Yeah, let's lift. And then I said, Mark, I got a photo idea. I didn't even have to say it's going to be a little weird. I'm like, okay, so here's what it's going to be. I'm like, shirt off. You're like, yep, cool. Like, what do you need? And I think that's just amazing. So I would say.
It was awkward.
It was, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean it to be awkward, dude. I was going to say thank you very much for being on the podcast. For those that are listening, check Mark out. Mark, you're my favorite Jack Metrosexual.
Thank you, sir. Hey.